Hello everyone. I'm Parth Patel, a registered migration agent and director at 𝐲𝐬𝐧 Group. Actually, I'm in this field since 2014 and have helped many migrants getting permanent residency. 𝐲𝐬𝐧 Group is a well-known brand in migration and education industry and operating since 2009. I'll be covering a topic about Victoria State Nomination Program and how the program was effective in the last financial year and how or what kind of changes we might expect in the upcoming financial year. Just bear with me, I'll just share the slides. Okay. So I'll be covering latest updates on Victoria State nomination and regional state nomination process. Just part of what services we are offering at 𝐲𝐬𝐧 Group. So we are providing PT tutorials, 𝐼ELTS tutorials, get my policy where you can compare and buy policies from different providers, CCL tutorials, so you can prepare by yourself, and you can also get some paid materials, material for PT, 𝐼ELTS, and CC preparation. We also provide professional year enrollments for accounting, IT, and engineering students. We also provide PT vouchers, but that is only applicable in India, to what I remember. And we have an application called 𝐸𝐻. So 𝐸𝐻 is a mobile application available on both Android and App Store. 𝐸𝐻 is mobile application which helps you with what kind of visa options you could possibly have, what are the state nomination criteria, the eligibility, the fees associated with these applications, and you get all the updates through the app. So you don't have to actually go on multiple websites to find information related to your occupation. So you get all the reports for whatever occupation in which you would like to apply for permanent residency. About the topic, state nomination program is part of general skilled migration. So general skilled migration is also known as point tested visas, where generally there are 3 visa categories, subclass 189, 190, and 491. 491 has 2 different streams. One is state nominated visa, sponsored visa, and then the family sponsored visa. So when we talk about 189 visa, so I'll be just quickly going through these visa options, and then we'll go on to the topic for the state nomination for Victoria. So 189 visa is known as skilled independent visa. Independent means you are applying for visa independently. You cannot take help of any state government, any employer, or any family member who would like to sponsor you. For this visa, your occupation must be listed under immigration's occupation list known as MLTSSL. So currently there are 3 occupation lists in Australia: MLTSSL list, short-term skilled occupation list, and regional occupation list. So your occupation must be listed under MLTSSL, then only you can apply for 189 visa. 189 is a permanent visa, and that does not come with any visa conditions. So you can do whatever you would like to and wherever you would like to in Australia. 189 visa, if you'd like to apply, you cannot apply straight away. It is invitation based visa. That means you have to apply for an application called EOI, expression of interest, with Skill Select portal. And once you are invited, then only you can apply for the visa. And invitation is generally based on the occupation, your points, and date of effect of your EOI. Compared to 189, the other visa category, which is also permanent visa, is 190, which is a state nominated visa. So you cannot apply for permanent residency by your own skills. You have to compulsory look for state nomination, which could be Victoria or any other state. Every state and territories in Australia take part in the state nomination program. But different state might have a different requirement. So whatever state you would like to apply, you have to meet requirements for that state. So for 190, it's a state nominated visa, and your occupation could be on MLTSSL or short-term skilled occupation list. So you have access to more occupations. It's also a permanent visa, does not come with any visa condition. And you have to meet state nomination criteria in order to get this visa. So you have to meet the criteria, then you apply to state. And if state approves your nomination, then you can apply for the visa. The good thing is that the state governments can sponsor you with even lesser points. 189 is totally points-driven visa category. 190 is state-driven visa category. And the 491 visa category is not a permanent visa. It's a provisional visa. Provisional means a kind of a conditional visa which leads to permanent residency under visa subclass 191. So it has two options. You either look at a state-sponsored visa, 491, or the family-sponsored visa. If you're looking at state-sponsored visa, very similar to 190, you have to get a state nomination from the state. Depending on what state you are applying, you have to meet their requirements. Additional good thing is that for this visa, you can choose occupations from even regional occupation list. So you have access to all the occupations which is listed under MLTSSL short-term or regional occupation list. So you can choose more occupations. It's a guaranteed permanent residency as long as you meet the criteria to qualify for the permanent visa, which is just living and working in regional area for 3 years. So this is also very popular visa. 491 family sponsored visa requires a relative who is a permanent resident or citizen or eligible New Zealand citizen living in regional Australia. As of now, other than Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, all other areas are considered as regional area. So your relative must be living in regional area, and generally up to first cousin, your relatives can sponsor you. You just need one relative, and there is no limitation on how many people they can sponsor. So if you are a permanent resident, you would like to sponsor 10 people, 20 people, you can sponsor them. So sponsoring means it's not like you are giving them a visa. It's just that you are giving them 15 additional points on top of whatever points they have. And then it is very similar to 189, where more the points, higher are your chances to get an invite. So you also apply very similarly for EUI like 189 and then wait for an invite. Once you're invited, then you apply for the visa. Once you get the visa, very similar to state-sponsored visa, same visa you get, 5 years visa you get, and then you work on some conditions, then you can apply for permanent residency. So that's all about the general skilled migration. And for general skilled migration, the basic requirements that applies to all the 3 visa categories, 189, 190, 491, is that you must have a valid skills assessment. Valid means you must have a full skills assessment. The skills assessment, which is not for 485 visa purpose. So for temporary graduate visa 485, there is a different kind of skill assessment known as provisional skills assessment. So that skills assessment is not acceptable for this visa. So you have to make sure that you have a valid skills assessment. You have to score at least 6 bands in each of the 4 modules in IELTS test, or other acceptable exams are PT, TOEFL, Cambridge, and OET. So 5 exams are acceptable in Australia. So you have to score equivalent in other exams. IELTS academic and general both are acceptable. For PT, it's only academic, and all these exams are valid for 3 years from the date of the test. On top of this, you are required to score minimum of 65 points, irrespective of whether you are applying for 189, 190 or 491. But in the case of 190 state nomination, you get 5 points from the state. So if you have 60 points by yourself, you can still qualify. And if you're looking 491, state government or family member can give you 15 points. That means even if you have 50 points, you are eligible to apply. So you will be at 65 points in total. So you need 65 in total. Also, sometimes people, they are not aware of whether they can claim these points in the beginning, or it's like when state government gives you sponsorship, then only you get points. So it's like as long as you have 50 points, you apply to them. It's not like you get a state nomination, then only you get that 15 points. Generally, state government consider in a way that when you apply, when you are meeting all the criteria, probably if they sponsor, you are going to get that 15 points or 5 points. So you have to consider that they are in a way going to give it as long as you meet the criteria and they are happy to nominate you. Your age must be below 45. After 45, you cannot qualify for the general skilled migration. So these are the core and the basic requirements to apply for any of the GSM 189, 190 or 491 visa. On top of that, there are other requirements as well, but that depends on particular visa number, visa subclass. Now, when we are looking at Victoria State nomination, we don't know exactly what will be the criteria for the new financial year. But then as of now, initially we'll talk about what are the criteria available for the current financial year, which is 2022-23. So in current financial year, Victoria, as of now, they have closed the program on 5th of May. Victoria closed the program, but when they were sponsoring people at that time, the criteria were that you have to show you are committed to Victoria, so living and working in Victoria. How you show the commitment? So generally you declare that, okay, I am committed to live in Victoria. Your age, as we discussed, you must be under 45. English requirement, competent English means 6 bands in each, as we have discussed. A valid skills assessment. The good thing with Victoria State Nomination Program is Victoria, they haven't particularly provided occupation list for particularly Victoria. So they are saying that as long as you have a skills assessment in an occupation which is listed on immigration's occupation list, MLTSSL, short-term or regional occupation list, you are eligible to apply for state nomination. However, other states, they have their own occupation list, and they generally say that if your occupation falls under their occupation list, then only you qualify. Victoria was also having that kind of list in last few years, but then currently they stated that as long as your occupation is on immigration's list, you can qualify. So all the occupations which are on immigration's list are eligible to apply for Victoria State nomination. You must have 65 points, which is the basic points requirement. And another important requirement for Victoria is that you must be living or working in Victoria or overseas. So if you are living in Australia, you must be living in Victoria or working in Victoria. So working in Victoria is generally where if someone is living at the border communities, for an example, if you're living in New South Wales at the border, then Victoria says that if you are living or working in Victoria, that could be still considered. But if you are living in Victoria anywhere, then it's fine. Even if you are not working in Victoria, you can qualify. And people who are living outside of Australia are also eligible to apply. But people who are living interstate, they are not eligible to apply unless they are working in Victoria. ROI selected by Victorian state government. That means once you are meeting this criteria, you apply for an application called ROI, which is separate to EUI, which we were discussing earlier. EUI, expression of interest, goes to Department of Home Affairs, and ROI goes to the state government. So if you haven't applied for ROI, Victoria, they don't know whether you are even eligible, whether you would like to get a state nomination as such. So you must apply for ROI. Once you apply for EUI and ROI both, then Victoria will be conducting invitation rounds where they will look at your skill, other people's skills, and based on that, they will be inviting you. So you must be selected in your ROI to apply for state nomination. Then only you can apply for state nomination and then the visa. So state government, they can sponsor you under 2 visa categories, as we discussed, 190 and 491. So 190 is a permanent visa. So onshore applicants who are living and or working in Victoria or offshore are eligible, as we discussed. It's a permanent visa, so it does not come with any condition. Commitment to live in Victoria for 2 years. So visa does not come with any condition, but Victorian state government, because when they are sponsoring, they are saying that we expect that you live in our state for 2 years of time, or we want that you live in our state for 2 years of time. So they are sponsoring you because they have a shortage of your skills in their state. So that's why they expect that you stay in their state so that their shortage can be fulfilled. If you're not living in their state, for an example, it does not serve their purpose. And that's why they says we want your commitment to stay in our state for 2 years of time. However, visa does not come with any condition that you have to live in particular Victoria or any other state as such. So that is important thing. A lot of people actually ask about this thing. So it's a kind of a moral obligation with the state government, and they expect it's like you are getting a benefit, getting a visa. So they also expect a benefit in terms of staying, establishing yourself in that state. 491, it's a regional visa. So people who are living onshore or people who living offshore are eligible. So onshore applicants who are living, sorry. Okay, so onshore applicants who are living and or working in metropolitan Victoria are eligible. So it's not just metropolitan area. It's everyone who is living in Victoria are all eligible, including actually people living in Melbourne as well. So earlier Victoria, when they started the program in July, at that time they announced that people who are living and working in regional Victoria are only eligible. However, later on Victoria changed the requirements, saying that people living in Melbourne are also eligible to apply. But then ultimately it's like people living anywhere in Australia, anywhere in Victoria are all eligible to apply for 491 state nomination. Also, earlier they were saying that you must be working in Victoria in an occupation which is considered as a skill level 1, 2, 3, something like that. But for now, until they closed the program, they were saying that even if you're not working in Victoria, you are still eligible as long as you are living in Victoria. So the only requirement is living in Victoria. It is important to note that selected applicants will be required to relocate to work and live in regional areas. So again, we have been asked by certain applicants that is it like Victoria have changed the criteria for 491 that people living in Victoria, living in Melbourne are also eligible and they can stay in Melbourne. So you are eligible to apply for state nomination when you are living in Melbourne, for an example. But then once you get the visa, you have to migrate to regional area. So then there is no exemption to that. You have to relocate to regional area after you are nominated once your visa has been granted. This visa lets you apply for permanent residency under the visa subclass 191 after living and working in regional area for 3 years of time. Again, recently government announced that for work, there is no requirement that how much you must have earned through the job. So you can do any number of jobs. You can do multiple jobs, permanent, part-time, casual, doesn't matter. It's not required that you work in the same occupation in which you get permanent residency. So you can do any job you want. You can do your own business, self-employed, subcontractor, whatever it is fine. Earlier, people were confused. Government was saying that you are required to have 53,900 income requirement. However, as of now, government have announced that there is no requirement of income, what you must have earned through your work in regional, but that doesn't mean that you can work in city area. Again, some people were asking us that now there is no requirement of income through regional work experience. Is it fine that we work in the city area? No, because 491 visa comes with a condition that you have to live, work, study, whatever you like to do in regional area. So if you're not living, working or studying, if you are studying somewhere, for example, that must be a regional area. If you're not doing so, your visa 491 could be cancelled as well when they find out that thing. And secondly, if it was not cancelled by the department, when you apply for permanent residency, at that time, if they find out that you are not living in regional, working in regional, things like that, they can refuse your visa application. They can also cancel your 491 visa at that time. So make sure whatever activities you would like to do, that must be in regional area. If you would like to travel overseas, for an example, it is fine. If you'd like to come to city for some activities, probably on the weekend, you'd like to catch up with your friends and things like that, that is possible. But usually you must be living, working, studying, whatever you like to do in regional area. And that condition applies to all the applicants as part of your visa. So it's not just about the primary applicant, all the applicants, including child, partner, must be living, working, studying, whatever it is in regional area. Again, for the commitment, because it's pathway to permanent residency, regional visa 3 years after you get PR. So commitment, state expect that you stay in their state for 3 years of time because they are sponsoring you. How it works. So the first step is to apply for expression of interest via Skill Select portal, which is Department of Home Affairs, Social and Government's portal. So you first apply for expression of interest that you can do as long as you meet the minimum criteria of having age of below 45, having skills assessment, at least 6 bands in each and 65 points, then you can apply for expression of interest. Then the next step is applying for ROI. You don't have to wait for a certain period of time after lodging any UI to apply for ROI. As long as you have applied for UI, you can apply for ROI. Once you apply for ROI, then you are required to wait for the state government to select you. Once they select you, then you are required to apply for nomination application on the Live in Melbourne. That's the portal, Victoria State Nomination Portal. So that's where you apply for the nomination, and they will take certain weeks of time to process your application. And then you can, once it is approved, you will get 2 months of time to apply for the visa. So then you apply for visa with, again, Department of Home Office, because visa is processed by the government. So 2 weeks to submit all the documents. That is after step 3, once they are inviting you to apply for state nomination, they will give you 2 weeks of time to submit the documents and the state nomination application. Once it is submitted, then the state government takes around 2 to 3 months. In certain cases, they process very quickly within a day of time even. Faster processing if visa is about to finish. So in certain situations, you may be able to request them to fast track your application. Depending on the situation, they may be able to prioritize your application. And make sure that your documents are all valid when you are applying for state nomination. And also it's not just about when you're applying for the state nomination. Until state government does not finalize your application, until you receive the final invite from the state government, all of your documents must be valid at that time. So for an example, if you have claimed 80 points, including 5 points for English, for your partner skills, for an example, and if your partner's English score expired during the state nomination process, then you are missing out those 5 points. As long as if state is happy to nominate you again with that 5 points lesser, then it's fine. Otherwise, you are required to score that 5 points through any other means, which could be through partner's English or any other means. Anyway, so how does it work? So first step, as we discussed, is submitting an EUI, where generally it's about choosing the right subclass, visa subclass, which is 190 or 491, choosing the right state. You have to particularly state Victoria, or you can state any state as such, but we prefer you mention Victoria as a preferred state for state nomination. You have to list your occupation details, including 𝐜𝐴𝐧 code and things like that, your skills assessment details as part of the occupation, your education details, employment details, and any other points you are claiming as such. Ultimately, if your EUI is accurate, that increases your chances of getting an invite. There are a few factors which Victoria look into the EUI when selecting people. So make sure that you have filled accurate details, and also about what factors based on which they are selecting people. You have to make sure that that kind of information you are entering accurately in the EUI. Otherwise, you might be invited probably, but then you might be losing some time in a way, because you might not have provided accurate information. So other people who provided accurate information points, for an example, might be invited first. Then after submitting an ROI, where generally they ask which subclass ROI you are looking for, 194, 91, choosing the occupation, whether your location is onshore, offshore, and what salary you are earning if you are in Victoria. So because they also select people based on the salary. So this is how you have to start the process, submitting your ROI. When they select you, then you apply for state nomination. Once it is approved, you apply for the visa application. Okay, how they select applicants. So Victoria, as of now, they have pointed out some factors based on which they select applicants. So for now, currently they are looking at, currently means when the program was available, they were looking at your points, how many points you are claiming in your EUI application, what salary you are earning. For salary component, they were saying that you can be working in any occupation, even though you have chosen, for an example, mechanical engineer. If you're working in a hospitality occupation, for example, as a cook, that is still fine. You can claim salary what you're earning through that occupation. So salary could be from any occupation, but then the occupation must be a skill level 1, skill level 2, and skill level 3. Any occupations which are skill level 4 or below will not be acceptable. Like salary earned from that kind of jobs will not be acceptable. Also, they only consider salary from one primary job. So you have to target any one job. If you're doing multiple jobs, you have to decide which job you would like to use. Skill level 1 means professional jobs, which is like IT occupations, engineers, teachers, social workers, the nurses, doctors, things like that. Professional occupations, higher level managerial positions are all skill level 1 occupations. Skill level 2 means occupations such as enrolled nurse, community workers, restaurant manager, hotel manager, with lower level occupations are part of skill level 2. Skill level 3 means trade and technician occupations, which is mainly like cook, motor mechanic, painter, welder, mechanical, other technicians, for example. So they are part of skill level 3. So any job you are doing from skill level 1 to 3, you can claim the salary, but through only one job. Also, if you are working on a casual basis, then if you're earning, suppose $25, around $5 component will be a casual loading, like 25% of loading. So they will only consider your salary being $20 because you are working on casual basis. You have to deduct 25% of casual loading. And if you are working on a permanent part-time basis, even if you're working 20 hours, for an example, they still consider that job as a full-time job. So you are getting a benefit if you're on a permanent position, even if you're working lesser hours. But if you have more queries, we can probably at the end of the session, if we have time, we will cover your questions, or you can contact us and we can help you with your situation in case if that requirements remain same in the new financial year. Years of experience in your nominated occupation. So they will see how many years of experience you have in the same field. In this case, they don't look at your experience in any other field. English language level, that is, if you are having competent English, which is 0 points for English, proficient English, which is seven bands in each of the four modules, and superior English, which is 8 bands in each of the four modules. So then you get the priority based on English skills. They don't see if you have scored 7 each or someone have, they don't differentiate between the people having 7 each or 7.5 each. It doesn't make any difference, because ultimately it's considered as a proficient English, which is 7 bands in each, having 10 points. So they don't differentiate between particular, like they don't go by particular modules. They just see whether it's 7 each, 8 each, or less than 7 each. Education and occupation skill level. So they also look at your occupation skill level 1, 2, 3, and education level. If you have done bachelor's, master's, PhD, things like that. So based on that also they give priority. They also look at partner skills, and we have seen that this is one of the important factor they have been looking into while selecting people. So if your partner, if you are married, for an example, or if you are in a de facto relationship, if your partner is also qualified, having 5 points, you can get 5 points from your partner if your partner have 6 each, or having a passport from certain countries. Your partner can give you another 5 points if your partner has a skills assessment as well under an occupation which is on MLTSSL or STSL for 190, or it could be even on ROL if it is 491 visa, as we discussed earlier. So if you are claiming 10 points from your partner, we have seen that they were given priority while selecting people. So these are all the priority factors. Age is another priority factor, but exactly we haven't found out that higher the age they are giving priority or lesser the age. Most likely not the lesser the age, but then most likely probably the age factor they are looking at. Most likely, I think so that people in between 25 to 33 years of age could be given the priority, but we haven't seen any particular situation where certain kind of age people were given a priority or less priority as such. So these are the 7 priority consideration for the current financial year. They may add additional priority factors. They may remove all the priority factors as well. That depends on how will be the new financial year's program. On top of this, they have also stated that some occupations will be having a fast track nomination process. So occupations such as medical professionals, such as physiotherapist, cardiologist, neurologist, most of the medical professionals, registered nurses, teaching occupations, social workers, welfare workers, community workers. On top of that, also there are some more occupations, but we have just mentioned some of the occupations which are in which more people are applying for the state nomination, but there are some more occupations as well, which they added under the fast track nomination pathway. That means if your occupation is one of such occupations, then Victoria will be considering your application under fast track nomination, where once you have applied for EOI and ROI within 2 weeks of applying for ROI. So in short, generally Victoria, they conduct invitation rounds on fortnightly basis. So as long as whenever they conduct next invitation round within 15 days, most of the time, so they will invite you in that round. So they are saying that within 2 weeks of time, they will invite you if your occupation is part of this fast track occupation category. Also, once they have invited you and you make an application for the state nomination, they says within 5 days, they will process your nomination application. So within 5 days, you will get the final invite if you're meeting all the criteria, and then you can apply for the visa. So that's very good of the Victorian state government, that for such occupations which are much more high in demand, in shortage, are given priority through this pathway. They may add or remove occupations from the list in on timely manner, depending on the shortages in the state. So probably there might be addition of some certain occupations, or maybe I don't think they are going to remove any occupations from this list if they are going to keep similar list in new financial year as well. In case if you have applied for nomination and if you get a visa nomination refusal, generally state government gives you 6 months of ban. So you cannot apply for state nomination within that 6 months of time. In some situations, they have still removed that 6 months of ban as well. This is to prevent repetitive and low quality profiles or applications. So if your application is refused on certain grounds, they want to make sure that you apply correct application with accurate information, things like that, so that ultimately they get the quality applications. If your application gets refused, they have an option to review the nomination decision as well, as long as you are meeting the minimum eligibility criteria. And if you think that you have, if there is an error made in processing your state nomination application, so they may be able to consider the application under review. These are some fun facts about Victoria or Melbourne. As per Australian Bureau of Statistics, you might have also heard that Melbourne has taken over Sydney as the nation's most populous city, having around 19,000 more people living in Melbourne compared to Sydney. This is Victoria also considered as oldest civilization on Earth. There is evidence of 40,000 40,000 years before communities were living in Victoria. Melbourne has achieved the top spot in Williams Russell's ranking for friendliest cities in the world. It is considered over the multiple years as the most reliable city in the world. That is for the people who don't know. Melbourne has the world's largest tram network with a length of 250 kilometers. Melbourne is often known as the sporting capital because a lot of sporting activities are happening in Victoria. Victoria is the smallest mainland state in Australia. There is another state which is Tasmania, which is even smaller than Victoria, but it's not part of the mainland. So part of the mainland, Victoria is the smallest. Just to give you just some idea. Other than that, every year immigration, they give particular quota to every state government. So state government, based on the quota they have been given, they will announce the requirements for the state nomination. If they have the good amount of quota, then the requirements for state nomination will be a bit easy. If they have a limited quota, then the state nomination criteria will be difficult, so that less people qualify and they nominate less number of people in a way, so that they can restrict number of applications. They don't have to assess that many applications. So for now, the quota given to Victorian state government was very good in numbers compared to last financial years. And that's where Victoria reduced the criteria, saying that people who are just living in Victoria are all eligible. So we have seen a lot of people have migrated who earlier migrated from Victoria to other states to get the state nomination. However, now we have seen other people living in other states are migrating to Victoria because Victoria, they don't have any rule that you have to stay in Victoria for a month, 6 months, 3 months of time as such. So people, as long as they are living in Victoria, are all eligible to apply for state nomination. So we have seen many applicants have migrated to Victoria to qualify. And also some occupations that we have discussed were considered under fast track. However, in other states, those people like nurses, for an example, had to wait for more time or more months in other state, and that's why they have also relocated to Victoria. But anyway, so current financial year ending on June 30th, 2023, the allocation Victoria was allocated was around 12,900 applicants under 190 category and around 2,000 applicants under 491 category. So this data is until May 2023. So end of May 2023. By that time, Victoria has completed most of the quota allocated to them. So around 12,780 applications were finalized by May. So most likely by now, Victoria must have used entire quota given to them. This year, Victoria has used entire quota given to the state government. Last year, the quota allocated to the state government was a bit unused, and that's where I think the state has taken the steps to mitigate these concerns, and they have tried and they've done their best to finish the quota even a month before in a way. For business innovation investment, same way, 100% quota they have used. Victoria has been very popular in business innovation investment program. They generally get the higher number of quota. But anyway, so that's where we have seen most of the people, many people actually look for business innovation pathway through Victoria state government. So that was about rundown for the current financial year, what quota was allocated to the Victorian state government and whether they have utilized that quota. For migration program planning level, government, Department of Home Affairs, they decide how many people, applicants will be granted particular visa categories. So for employer sponsored, for the current financial year, government announced that 35,000 visas will be granted. However, for next financial year, it's good that government have increased the quota from 35 to 36,800, so around increase of around 2,000 applicants. Skill independent 189 visa, government has reduced quota bit from 32 to 30,000. So it's still very similar. And that's where we are expecting that government will invite very good number of applicants even in this financial year, in the new financial year. And for the current financial year, big round happened in December 2022, where government invited huge number of applicants, and that's where the cutoff for most of the occupations came down to 85. Certain occupations were invited with even minimum basic points of 65. So looking at the quota given in the new financial year, we think that new financial year will be also much more easier for applicants to get an invite for 189 if they are eligible. Points cutoff may come down by 5-10 points depending on how many people they will actually invite, because these numbers what we are looking at is not the number of invites, it's the number of visas they are going to grant. So there are a lot of number of applications which are already in pipeline which are not granted in this financial year, which will be granted in next financial year. That is considered as part of this quota 30,375. However, if they are inviting in the new financial year, their visas could be granted in the next financial year. So it is up to the department how many invitations they would like to give in the new financial year. It's not something which you can identify from these numbers, because these numbers are for the visa grants. Regional visas from 34,000 to 32,000, very similar. State nominated visas 31,000 to 30,000, so very similar. So that's where we are hoping that most likely all the state governments will get very similar quota what they have been given last financial year. And because the number of quota given to the state governments isn't so high, I think the state nomination requirements for most of the states will remain very similar, because the state nomination program for the last financial year was very good. I mean, the current financial year was very good for most of the states. And that's where I think that most of the state governments will have the similar requirements only. So we might see some minor changes. Probably they might add some priority attributes if they think that something might be helpful, more helpful as such. But otherwise, I think the way the program is going, most likely most of the criteria will remain very similar. Business innovation, they are reducing the quota from 5,000 to 2,000. They are also making some changes in the business innovation program. That's a different thing though. Global talent, same quota. Distinguished talent, same quota. So on an average, the last year's skilled category planning levels are very similar to coming financial year. And that's where I think the program will become bit more easier in the terms that good number of people with higher skills were already selected in the last financial year. So this year, probably you might have to compete with people who are having bit medium skills in a way, or people who have graduated recently, or they are qualifying in this financial year. They might have higher points. Otherwise, most of the people having higher points were good number of people were invited in last financial year. So this year probably becomes, I think it's going to become more easier than even the last financial year. Similar way, the migration program planning for the family migration, it's very similar, exactly similar, except the special eligibility criteria. So family migration is going to become very similar to last financial year. And some of the visa categories are demand driven, such as partner child migration and things like that. So depending on how many applications people are applying, based on that, they decide the planning levels. But for now, this is the planning level. Key information about the new financial year. So as we have seen in the previous slide, 72% of total allocation was 195. So out of total of allocation, 72% of allocation is given to skilled stream. That means skilled people will be given a priority in the coming financial year. Reduction of 2.5% allocation compared to last financial year in the skill stream, but I think it's not a major change in a way. So still good number of people will be invited. Other than that, government is extending funding for 380 visa processing officers to reduce the processing time, and they are investing 48.1 million over next 12 months of time in order to prioritize the applications or provide the faster outcomes. So ultimately, skilled people can migrate to Australia for people who are living outside of Australia. And government is also investing on IT systems to improvise program delivery, visa service delivery. So around 27.8 million is also um, invested in the new financial year over the 2 years of time. About when Victoria will reopen the program. So as of now, Victoria, they haven't announced anything. We haven't heard anything from them as well. But most of the state governments, as of now, I think yesterday, Tasmania and Queensland announced saying that for the current financial year, they are still processing applications or the quota is nearly full, something like that. And then they are waiting for department to allocate them a quota. Based on the quota they have been given, based on that, they are going to announce the requirements. So hopefully generally every state governments are given the quota at the same time. So if Tasmania, Queensland haven't heard about it, most likely Victoria haven't heard about the quota. But as we were saying, the last year's quota is very similar to this year quota, and that's where, like as per the visa categories, and that's where I think the state governments will also get the similar quota to the last financial year. So I think Victoria will get around 10 to 12,000 quota for 190 similar way. They might probably negotiate between 190 and 491. So some quota, probably they might give more quota to 491 compared to last financial year if they think that they would like to promote more to regional areas, people living and probably relocating to regional areas. That might be a change, but otherwise, I think the total number of quota will be very similar. Maybe $1,000, $2,000, 2,000 numbers change in a way. About the criteria the same way, because the numbers will remain same. I think the criteria for most of the state governments, including Victoria, will remain same. And Victoria's this program is running well, where they are only selecting high caliber applicants. So I think the program will remain most likely same. There might be some changes in the priority attributes, or maybe the occupations in which they would like to fast track applications. They may remove that. They may add some more occupations. So you might see something like that kind of changes. But more information on the program will be published closer to the opening, which is it's nearly end of the financial year. So hopefully we will hear from state government within a week, 2 weeks of time. But it seems that if the quota given to the state government is going to remain same, I think department will allocate that quota very soon. And if the quota will remain same, then I think state will also start the program very soon. So I don't think it will be like last financial years, because at that time immigration was make big changes where they would like to allocate more quota, and that's where state governments were waiting for changes to be announced. And that's where the program was not starting so quickly in the new financial year. But I think this financial year, coming financial year, will be like close quickly that the state government will announce the criteria and will start the program. So we don't have much information for Victor, but I think based on how the quota is allocated, I think the program will remain very similar. We'll do quick rundown of the session once the new updates are available. So please stay updated, stay tuned for through all our social media pages. You will get to know the changes. Okay, so it's time for any questions you have. So my colleague will shoot out any questions we have, and then I'll be trying to answer whatever questions I can during this session.
Thank you so much, sir. That was an amazing session. And we do have a couple of questions here. So the first question is, what is the role of salary in the PR process? I mean, is it an important factor?
Okay, so when we are looking at Victoria, I have explained about salary component in the previous slides. But generally, Victoria, they select people based on the salary. So that is very crucial factor. We have seen that Victoria is giving higher priority to salary, points, partner skills, and number of years of experience. So that are given higher priority as such. So salary is one of the factor. We have seen that Victoria has invited people with even probably 10 points lesser. So for an example, just to give you an example, if for an example, people with 85 or 90 points are getting an invite from Victoria, we have seen that people having 75 points, 10 points, 5 points lesser, but having a salary of 100K or more are also given an invite. So probably higher the salary could help you in leveraging your points requirement in a way. So points cutoff. So that is one thing. We have also seen that people whose partner are qualified having a skills assessment were also given a priority. So even if they have probably 5-10 points lesser, they were invited. As I said, priority attributes may change in the new financial year, but I think salary is going to play a big role, because in recent meetings with the ministers and based on how they have made some announcements, it seems that ministers they are making some changes, or they are giving priority to the salary factor. And that's why recently you might have also noticed that they have changed the TSMIT temporary skills migration income threshold from 53,900 to 70,000. And we also seen in the one of the conference from the Minister of Home Affairs that the government is planning to make some changes in this GSM General Skill Migration Program, where people having higher skills will be given higher salary will be given the priority. So they were saying that they are going to create 3-tier program where people earning more than $162,000 will be having much more lesser scrutiny. They will be given much more higher priority, something like that. People earning more than 70,000 but less than 162,000 will be the second tier, where they have also good possibility, but comparatively lesser possibility than people having that much of salary. And then the third tier program, where people earning less than $70,000 will be given lesser priority compared to the other 2-tier programs, something like that. So that were, I mean, government, they did not provide much more detailed information on how they are going to do the program like that, but then they have just given some indications like that. So looking at that, we have also seen that in last financial year, before that, there were no salary requirements, nothing to do with the salary. But in last financial year, some states came up with salary requirements that, okay, if you're earning this much, you'll be given priority. Like Victoria, for example, we have seen Tasmania, we have seen even South Australia, they have some program like that, that if you're earning more than 80K, then you are considered as one of the talent one of the talent category, for an example, something like that. So looking at that, I think salary will be given higher importance. Most of the people earning in Australia are in between 50 to 70,000 of package. So I think more than 70 if you're earning, then you will be considered probably in other tier program, and that's why you might be given a priority. But that's as of now, it's like generic information, but I think salary will be very crucial while getting an invite for this GSM program. And Victoria is anyway looking at the salary. And salary, as I was saying, they are, Victoria, for an example, they are saying that whatever salary you are earning, that could be through any job, irrespective of whether it is in your nominated occupation or any other field. But then salary must be through a job, which is a skill level job, which is skill level 1, 2, or 3. And we talked about what kind of skills level are those. So you just have a look at whether what job you are doing, whether that is falling under skill level 1, 2, 3. If it is, then your salary will be considered. If you are not doing that kind of job, better you look for job at that level. If Victor is going to keep the same requirements, then that will apply. But if they change something, then that might be a different story.
Thank you so much for that, sir. We have another question here. If there is a high number of selections for computer network and system engineers from overseas for 491 for Victoria.
So could you please repeat the question? Is it like we have high number of invites coming for 491 from offshore, is it?
Yes, offshore for computer engineer and system engineers for 491 Victoria.
Okay, so computer and systems engineers is the same occupation actually, but we have seen that Victoria, they haven't invited much more higher number of people from offshore in the initial months, but in the last few months, when the program was closing, we have seen that good number of people were invited. And generally, most of the state governments are giving priority under the 491 category rather than 190 category. So we have seen most of the state governments are giving priority um, um, uh, to offshore applicants for 491 application than 190 application. But I would say again, you wait for the new financial year and see how is the trend, how they are inviting people. Probably they might give higher priority to offshore people in the new financial year or things like that. But I would recommend that better you apply in whatever applications or whatever states you can. That will increase your chances of an invite. But 491, you have good chances of an invite for Victoria or any other state where you are eligible.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Another viewer has asked a question if there's a chance for food technologists with 70 points for 190 visa, Victoria.
Look, to what I remember, I think in 189 December invitation round, food technologists were invited with 65 points. So I think most of the people having 65 or more points must have been invited by December. So you won't have that much of competition in this occupation. And that's why Victoria, you must have a higher chance of an invite, but I would recommend you also apply for 1810 because in future, if similar rounds happen, you might be invited for 1810 as well. So most likely people who have applied under food technologist occupation after December, they might be waiting in the queue. So if there are more number of people waiting in the queue, having higher points than you, then you might have to wait. But food technologist, you does not have that much of competition. So I think that is having good possibility of invite, unless if they add this occupation the fast track processing, then you might be invited just within 2 weeks of time, as we have discussed.
Thank you so much for that. So we have another question, which is that if someone has studied a fast track nomination occupation like doctor, registered nurse, teacher, so can they apply PR in Victoria?
Yes, they can certainly apply, and that people are given the highest priority in a way. So as long as you have a skills assessment, you are meeting the basic criteria in short, then you can apply for EUI, ROI, and then state government is saying within 2 weeks of time, they will invite you to apply for state nomination. And then if you have claimed right points and things like that, they will approve your state nomination within 5 days of time. We have generally seen that literally within an hour of time also they have approved applications. They are saying 5 days though. And once that is approved, you can apply for the visa. So certainly you can apply as long as you are meeting the minimum criteria, which we have discussed in the this presentation. So you may go through that, but basically you need 65.6 each skills assessment, and under 45 if you are, then you are eligible to apply.
Thanks for that. So there's other question here. If a relative is living in Melbourne, so can they sponsor a family sponsored visa for a relative?
If they are living in Melbourne, they cannot sponsor, but it depends particularly where in Melbourne they are living, because there are some suburbs which are part of regional area, even though in a way you are considering it as a Melbourne. But for an example, suburbs such as Pakenham, Officer, Clyde North in South Melbourne are regional, considered as regional area. In North Melbourne, suburbs such as South Morang, Wollert, Munda, that are part of regional area. So if, for an example, your relative is living in that area, even though they are working in city, that doesn't matter. As long as they are living in regional, they can sponsor you that 15 points and you can apply for expression of interest for 491. If they are not living now, you may ask them to relocate if they are happy to relocate. And you can then apply for 491 family sponsored EUI. However, the problem in 491 family sponsored EUI is that you have to wait for an invite, and that invite is totally based on how many points you have, what's your occupation, and what date you applied for your EUI, or what date you have changed your EUI last time.
Thanks. The other question is, if there's anything like they'll get more EOI points from earning from the own relevant field like accounting.
Okay, so there are no any additional points if you are working in the same field. I mean, you get the normal points if you have worked for 1 year in Australia in the same field in the relevant occupation. For an example, as you are saying, you are an accountant, and if you have worked in accounting role, your title could be different, but your duties, as long as are relevant to accountant, then you can claim 5 points for working for 1 year in Australia. If you have worked for 3 years in Australia, you get 10 points. So how that helps you is, then when Victoria is selecting applicants, they will see that you have more points because you have worked for 1 year. But for an example, if you have worked for 10 months, it does not give you any points. It does not give you any priority as such.
Thanks for the answer. The other question is if there is a scope for a university lecturer for 189 invitation.
Correct. So 189, there are good scopes for university lecturers, because last time when they have invited people in December, they have invited people with even bare minimum points of 65. So as long as you have 65 or more, good possibility of an invite for 189 if government is going to conduct invitation round for university lecturer in the new financial year. So it's not like they are not going to conduct it in a way, but it's like we have seen that in some invitation rounds, like immigration, they conducted another round in May month, this like a month before. But in that round, they only invited people under certain occupation. So for an example, they are conducting invitation rounds in the new financial year, but they are not inviting university lecturer particularly. Then you don't have any scope, even though you have 80, 90, whatever the points. As long as they are inviting, then you have to compete with other people. How many points they have? More the points, better your chances. If points are same, you got 80, I got 80, then they will select person who has applied first. So something like that. So as long as the government is going to conduct invitation round for 189, you have a good possibility, because I think the quota, the places they have for 189 is good. So I think they will be conducting good number of rounds, and also good number of invites they will be giving. And if not 189, even if you apply for state sponsored visas, I think you will have a good possibility, because people with 65 points were all invited in until December. So less number of people probably after December who have applied are waiting in the queue. But now that people know that university lectures are given an invite with even basic 65 points, so we have seen that a lot of applicants started applying for skills assessment and started applying for permanent residency through such occupations. But they were not having any hopes earlier, so they were not applying for Australian government like for visas. But now we have seen a lot of people are applying for permanent residency, because they are seeing that cutoff for Australia is going much more down. Like just with basic points, also government is inviting in certain occupations. So one of this kind of occupation is university lecturer. So you have a good possibility. If not 189, I think even the state sponsored options should be easier to get.
Thank you so much for that, sir. The other question is, do they provide feedback on all ROI applications?
So Victoria State Government, they don't provide any feedback on the ROI application. Once you applied for ROI, then you are considered in the queue, and your ROI will be considered in the queue for the entire financial year. When new financial year starts, so for example, if you already applied for ROI in the current financial year, generally when new financial year starts, they ask you to apply for new ROI, because the requirements might have changed. So they really want to make sure that you reapply for the ROI. So that's what we have seen, that in new financial year, most likely you'll have to apply for new ROI. But once you apply for ROI, they conduct invitation rounds generally fortnightly basis. Until now, they have done that way. In new year, we don't know, but most likely it will be the same situation. So every fortnightly basis, they invite people. So your application, if it is not selected in the first round, your application will be sent to the next round. If you are selected, fine. Otherwise, it will be sent to the next round. So they keep sending your application in the rounds until the program ends. Whenever you are invited, you apply for the state nomination. That is how it works. Now about the feedback, generally speaking, they don't provide any feedback as such that, okay, you will be invited or things like that. But we have seen that in the current financial year, they have emailed people who were eligible for the program, saying that unfortunately you are not invited in the current invitation round, but you are eligible, so you may be invited in the next rounds. But then it's not like if they have emailed you, so you will be certainly invited, because then it depends on how many other people are still waiting in the loop, and how many people Victoria would like to select in the next round. So it depends on that. But the good thing is, if they are emailing that way, then you are eligible, and then you are placed in a queue. That's what it helps you to know. But we have seen that people who did not receive such kind of emails were also invited straight away. So does not make any difference in a way. And it does not help you positively or negatively in a way, because if they have emailed you, doesn't mean that you will be invited for sure, because it depends on the number of other people. For example, as of now, when you applied, there are 10 people waiting, and they emailed you saying you are eligible, you may be invited in the next round. But by the time next round happens, if 20 people other apply having more skills than you may not be invited. So that does not give you any indication that you will be invited for sure, but good possibility that as long as you are eligible, they have sent you that email. That is what you can consider, but does not give you a good idea that, okay, you will be invited for sure. Just kind of, you can consider that, okay, it's like my profile is at least accepted, I'm eligible for the program. That's what you can think in a way.
Thank you for that, sir. There's a question which asks that if the experience is important or the points are important. Like if someone has got 75 points, but the person just has 2 years of experience. On the other hand, someone has got 70 points, but have 5 years of experience. So which is the more better case?
So generally speaking, when points are same, they look at other factors such as experience. So if you have more years of experience, that will help you. And we have seen that points is not the alone factor based on which they are selecting people, unless your points are too high. So for example, if normally the cutoff is 85 and you apply with 90 or higher points, you may be invited having that many points. But if your points are at the cutoff or probably bit 5 points, 10 points lesser, you may still be able to get an invite if your other factors are also helping you to get an invite. So when you were saying, for an example, that people with 75 points having 3 years of experience, 2 years of experience, and someone having 5 years of experience with the same points, for an example, that person will be given a higher priority having 5 years of experience. That's what we have noticed. So what we have noticed is, for an example, person having 85 points, I mean, generally, Victoria, for example, they are selecting people with 85, and you have, for an example, 75 or 80 points, but having more years of experience, 3 years or more, that's what we have noticed, 3 years Australian experience or more, then that people were given priority when they were selected. So even with 5 points or 10 points lesser also, we have seen Victoria selecting those kind of candidates. So you cannot just judge it based on the points. It's multiple factors they look at, and based on that they decide. So you won't get a clear understanding of how they're inviting people, but then this is based on how we have researched invite for a lot of our clients. So based on that, we are trying to understand how they are inviting people, and based on that, I'm telling you that people with partners, qualified partner having 10 points from partner, or people having 100K or more salary, or people having 3 or more years of experience are given priority, even if they are having 5 points or 10 points lesser.
Thank you for that, sir. There's a question that if the viewer moves to the regional, but she doesn't work in her own field, so would that count in her EOI points for living and earning in regional area?
If you are talking about points, does not give you any points. Points you only get for living in studying in regional area. So if you have studied, and when you were studying at that time, you have lived in regional area for 2 years of time, the course was for 2 years of time, then only you get 5 points for studying and staying in regional at that time. Otherwise, 10 years, even if you live in regional area, you don't get any additional points. Or if you have worked in same field, any other field in regional area, does not give any additional points. But there are some state governments which says that if you live and work in regional area, we might sponsor you under some different pathways. Or for example, we sponsor you with even lesser requirements. For example, if we talk about Victoria, so we have seen that for 190, if an accountant applies, the cutoff was suppose 85 points. However, the same accountant or suppose some another accountant, I mean, another applicant, suppose apply through regional area for 491 state nomination, people having just 50 points by themselves and 15 points from state government, 65 points basically were invited to apply. So then points does not matter. Your location, your employment matters for 491. But then if you're asking me that I am applying for 190 and I'm living in regional, someone is living in Melbourne, is there any priority? So no. If you're living in regional, applying for the same subclass does not help you. But yeah, if you're applying for 491, then it can probably high chances that you will be invited in that way. So that way it can help you. And some states like South Australia, for example, they says that if you would like to qualify through normal working arrangement, you have to work in the same field. But if you live and work outside of Adelaide, like in a proper outer regional area, then if you work and stay for 6 months in any field, even if it is some low level jobs, they can still sponsor you, something like that. So that kind of advantages you might get depends on the state. If state has that kind of program, that might help you. But if state does not have any program like that, doesn't help living in regional there.
Thank you for that, sir. The next question is the eligibility for the accountants for 491 visa. Are they eligible for that?
If we are talking about Victoria, then you are eligible. Victoria currently, until the program was open, they were saying that as long as you are living in Victoria or at a border community. So if you're living in New South Wales at the border, and then you're working in Victoria, or you are living in Victoria, working in New South Wales, for example, when you are at the border, then it's fine. But otherwise, you must be living in Victoria, or if you're living outside of Australia, then you can qualify. So you are eligible as long as you are in Victoria. Then the priority factors, what we have discussed, comes in picture. Person having more priority factors or higher priority factors, based on that they will be selecting. So more points, more salary, things like that, they will invite you. But then we have seen that initially when Victoria started the program last financial year, at that time Victoria was saying that for regional visa 491, you must be living and working in regional Victoria. So people who were living and working in regional Victoria, for an example, accountants, were invited with even basic 65 points. But later on, when they changed the requirement, because they found out that number of people who applied for regional visa were much more lesser. So they earlier they got 3,500 quota, I guess, for 491. Later on, they reduced to 2,000. And that 1,500 quota, they shifted from 491 to 190. So when they saw that less number of people are looking for 491 state nomination, so then Victoria, they removed the requirements that you must be living and working in regional Victoria. So people who were living even in Melbourne, they said that their people are eligible. They also removed the criteria of working in a way. So when they removed that thing, so then a lot of applicants started applying for 491, And because more people started applying for 491, the competition increased. So then people with bit higher points were also not invited at that time. But when the requirement was that you must be living and working both in regional Victoria, less number of people were qualified, and that's why they were invited with even basic points. So accountants were invited with minimum points of 65 as well. But that's where we are telling people that if you don't have good possibility for 190, it's better that you relocate to regional, live in regional, work in regional, and apply for 491. So in 491, they give you priority if you're living and working in regional. That's what we have seen.
Thank you so much, sir. And there's one more question, which is about a chef. So is a chef like eligible to apply for 189 visa with 70 points?
Yeah, chefs are all eligible to apply for 189, 190, and 491, all the visa categories, as long as you qualify for meeting other requirements. But you can qualify for 189, where chefs, I think, were invited with just 65 points in the last round, which was in December. We don't know when immigration is going to conduct another round for 189, most likely in the new financial year, but when we don't know. So if you're eligible, you should apply as long as you have minimum of 65 points and a skills assessment. So if you have that, you should apply for 189. At the same time, you should also apply for state-sponsored visas. We have seen that Victoria have also sponsored chefs under 190 category. So if you are eligible, having minimum 60 points, and then selection will be based on that priority factors, what we have discussed. So you can apply for both 189, 190 at the same time as well. Whichever you get an invite first, you can target it accordingly. If you think your chances are lesser for both 189, 190 because you are not qualifying for the points or things like that, then you may target 491, where Victoria is selecting people with even 50 points by yourself and 15 points from the states, basic points of 65.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. So thanks for your insightful answers. It's been a great session. So yeah, and all of the questions which has not been answered yet can drop in the queries there, and we would be more than happy to answer it later. Thank you so much for an amazing session and joining in the group. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. And we request you to leave a review for the session at the link below. And that is also, I think you might have received an email as well to leave a review. And we have a $100 for gift card, I think, for people who are living. I think people will be selected, I think, on the basis on certain grounds. But then we kindly request you to leave us a review that helps us in improving our conclave event, which we are conducting every yearly basis. And thank you for joining the session.